Hey everyone, this is the second part of my conversation with Shigeko, a professional actor based in New York City. If you haven't listened to the episode prior to this one or the part 1 conversation, go ahead and stop playing this and listen to our first part of conversation first. Aside from that, you're listening to Musical Tangents. Welcome! On to something more based on your experience. Back to LaMama for a second. Did Ellen Stewart perform?
She was, Ellen Stewart was a young fashion designer. Originally in Chicago, when she moved from Louisiana to Chicago, she really only desired to study fashion. Back in the 40s, she is Black American. Nobody allowed a black person to study fashion in Chicago. So she said, well, then let me go to New York.
Right.
So she came to New York, and she wanted to study fashion. But first, you have to pay your food and rent and all that. So she needed to get a job, and she went to St. Patrick's Cathedral and prayed that she would get a job across the street in Saks Fifth Avenue. Well, sure enough, she walks by, there's like a help wanted kind of thing, but in a sweatshop. So she applies and she gets the job. So her prayer was, yes, sort of answered. So she starts working for Saks Fifth Avenue in their, like, I don't know proper English term, like a sweatshop where you put on a uniform and then you just produce
Whatever
outfits,
fits.
dresses.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, she got that job, great. So at the same time, she would go on weekends when it was the original of the starting of the concept of department store. Department store already existed, but the original idea that started the department store was the Jewish merchants in the Delancey district, Lower East Side Manhattan, where the Jewish settlement people would, on weekends, would go on the street and have many different little shops. So she would go down there looking for fabric because she was a fashion designer and wanted to make her own dresses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a gentleman named, what is his real name? I only know him or remember him as a Papa Diamond. I never met him, but because I'm trying to be accurate so that it's not a rumor.
Mm-hmm.
So Papa Diamond, there was a merchant who sold fabric. He had his family there, and he really befriended her. Said, look, this is my leftover from today. Take it. So soon enough, after some weekends, that Papa Diamond really gave her a lot of fabric, and she started making her own dresses at home. So then at work at Saks Fifth Avenue during the lunch time, she would put on her own dress or a shirt or skirt or mini dress. It was the time of the Twiggy's mini dress or something like that. Anyway, and she was very slim and beautiful. And then take off her uniform smock, and then she would walk around the department store. And there was a Madame Dupont in the store saying, I think you have like some French model from Paris and wearing some kind of maybe Balenciaga or whatever, maybe something very nice. I really want that shirt or blouse, or I don't know if it was a dress. So they find her. And then, stories later on, Saks Fifth Avenue gave her a design room of her own. But nobody would work for black women.
Right.
So at the same time, there were tons of Jewish people fleeing Nazi Germany to United States and everywhere in the world. So they collected several, like 10, 12 seamstresses that were already professional seamstresses who were fleeing Nazi Germany and very happy to be working anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So they worked for her. But Ellen says in return, they taught her everything because they were already professionals. So they taught her how to sew this and sew that and make this and make that. So Ellen would do the design. In return, she also earned very valuable education from the Jewish ladies. And the man who pushed her originally was also a Jewish man. And then she made her name and money. She even designed some dresses for, I believe, in royal family. Queen Elizabeth also had one of her dresses or something like that. I'm not sure exactly when and how and what it looked like. She was in and out of Paris. She was becoming a very big-time designer.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a man named Freddie Light who grew up with her in Louisiana or in Chicago. I don't know which state or which city. Freddie Light was raised in the same home, but not like blood sister and brother, but
Mm-hmm.
she called him spiritual brother.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Light was a playwright who had so much talent, everything was going for him, except somebody took away with his play, and c'est la vie, So Freddie Light lost his hope and gave up on playwriting.
Mm-hmm.
At which point Ellen Stewart said, okay, well, then I'm going to do something about it. So from that moment on, she decided, I'm going to be your push cart. She didn't have to act or be a dancer or anything. She was already on her way to very successful designer, and she already was. But she took all that money or whatever she saved up to buy several buildings in downtown that were deserted,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the original. Well, before buying the buildings, she has encountered many people who couldn't publish their plays. For example, gay American playwrights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To be gay in 1950s was illegal. Furthermore, to have gay plays, God forbid, never mind, nobody would do gay plays. So Freddie Light was not a gay playwright, but he had his hopes that he couldn't do. So Ellen Stewart, decided, well, I just need to find some place where she can allow people to come and do their plays, show their plays. So at that time, there was a place called Cafe Chino, run by a man named Joe Chino. Joe Chino had a tragic death, and so basically Ellen Stewart took over the tradition that Joe Chino began in Cafe Chino, and took the playwrights, the gay playwrights, and started Cafe LaMama in the basement of building. It's not on the East 4th Street, but basement somewhere, on 2nd Avenue. I forget where. 122 maybe. 2nd Avenue. in Lower East Side.
Uh-huh.
And in the beginning, here's this beautiful black lady and this gorgeous gay playwrights, white men usually, in and out of this basement. So people thought, oh, maybe she's a hooker
Oh.
running a brothel. So the policemen would come, the fire department would come, and all sorts of things. So because she did not know anything about running a theater.
Mm-hmm.
So then eventually, time goes on and said, but it'll be legal if you just serve a cup of coffee and call it cafe. Okay, we serve a cup of coffee. We're gonna call it cafe what? What about this mama? And it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll call it cafe mama. And then there was somebody, policeman or somebody, lawyer, I can't remember who exactly, who said, well, that doesn't sound chic enough or something like that.
I see.
So what about LaMama instead of mama? Because people used to call her mama. Because she was going to take care of their plays.
Right.
So then, okay, well, let's just call it Cafe La Mama.
So there's nothing dramatic about the name per se, but
That's
how
but
it
they
came
basically called her Mama because she was going to put their play and put it on the stage, and people were going to come, and then there was no plumbing, there was no toilet, there was nothing, but somehow she served coffee, they got the plumbing to make the bathroom, and that was the beginning of LaMama.
So then afterwards, which is, I think this is another interesting aspect about the theater in New York. Obviously, Broadway always existed. So musicals always existed. Operas have been going on for a long time.
Yes, yeah.
But experimental theater didn't exist very often.
No.
Probably, I want to say, before 1900s, and even then it would be mid-1900s.
Right.
Before then, experimental theater was not a really concept that evolved or that people had thought about.
Right.
This was around the time that straight plays started using sounds to create different atmosphere to sort of help audiences imagination. Why is the distinction of music being used in a straight play, and how is that different to just traditional musicals and operas in your opinion?
You gave me a very difficult question. Well, I'm going to say Broadway, as you know, the history of Broadway until the 1960s, it was all about beautiful people, beautiful white people. Okay, it didn't include us, BIPOC, until Hair, really.
Right.
Hair on Broadway, originally directed by Tom O'Hagan. It didn't really include many other variety of or diversity of people. So in 1960s, what played the important role is Vietnam War. Civil rights and women's rights movement changed the way culturally people perceive theater. So of course opera will always be opera because if you can imagine, in my world of flamenco, I can watch the same piece called Soleá or Alegría million times because it's done by different artists. So opera is similar, you can see La Bohème 100 times every year because it's done by different artists every season. And it'll be a different interpretation. Conductor
Mm-hmm.
makes the music different. Conductor likes to hold this note longer or shorter. Depends.
Right.
Depends on who the conductor is. Depends on who the singers are. So yes, the opera goers or Broadway musical goers can see the same show over and over. But at the same time, the next generation young people started to say, well, there's this show called Hair on Broadway,
Right.
and it's like, what, $10? I'm going to see it a million times because Hair said that I can marry a black man, or I can be a single mom and raise my child, or you could be naked on stage. And so it really reached out, of course, with the music and everything. It reached out to so many next generations as well as people who are against the war.
Right.
Make peace, not war. And that really changed a lot of the way people thought about Broadway musical now. And until then, again, it was all about beautiful white people.
Mm-hmm.
And so music and art has the power to change the way how the next generation or even older generation feel about who they are too. It's a reflection of what you do. So let's talk about like war, okay? The war did not end, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
War is today's conversation. It's happening now, today. Your own sister gets raped. Your own mother gets murdered. Your own father gets murdered in front of you. So, in many ways, instead of thinking how I can kill the group that killed my sister, then you're better off in some ways to talk about it or express the feeling and put it in music or dance or words. I'm not saying it's a healing because nobody can ever heal from your own family being murdered in front of you. But it does help in the long run. Arts and music is a healing element.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that instead of medical pills and more money, developing more pills and more pills, I think that everyone should learn to dance, to sing, to play music, and run around.
So another question then is, LaMama has been around since 1962.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a really long time in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because since then, the founding mother of the company,
Mm-hmm.
Ellen Stewart, passed
Mm-hmm.
away,
Mm-hmm.
and I think my father told me that a lot of other performers who worked there, playwrights, they all passed away.
Mm-hmm.
What I believe, and maybe they weren't intentionally doing LaMama as something to be saying, we want something like this to go on for a long time, but hopefully this can be another encourager for other artists to start their own thing.
Yeah.
But even then, I think New York City as a whole, even though it's a city of arts, you don't really find a lot of companies or productions that are willing to do experimental performing arts like LaMama did, I think. Do you think that's tied to like, and again, I think that's where it becomes really difficult, but do you think that's more to do with the fact that like funding or popularity, or is it more to do with just people not being open to that? What factors do you think took into the account that there are still, to me at least, somewhat not enough experimental theater production companies like LaMama?
Well, Ellen Stewart told me, we were both doing my little show in Mexico. We were staying in the same house, and she would be interviewed. I'd be with her by her side, and somebody said, "Oh, so what do you mean, like LaMama experimental theater works?" And she's like, "Hell." Well, she didn't say hell. I don't know. No, she didn't say that. She said, "I don't know. I don't know what's experimental, and I don't care. What's a category, and what is straight play and what is experimental play? I met an amazing young playwright recently. Her name is Haruna Lee, and Haruna Lee's play is often directed by Aya Ogawa. These are already up and coming. They're not even just behind. They're already like on the top level Asian artists, okay? But anyway, what I'm about to say is that what is experimental is not really defined by any book.
Mm-hmm.
Shuji Terayama, he's like from the 1970s. He was a LaMama in 1970. This crazy madness director from Japan comes over, right, in 1970 and does a show named La Marie Vison that is still being performed in Japan. He has 100 butterflies flying over. He is probably the only or the first director who began Butoh performers. It's just like slow guys, butt naked, bald head with no eyebrows, walking super slowly, without even blinking their eyeballs, and it takes them like 2 hours to do it, and then people just doing it, just images and images of like almost like a performance art.
Mm-hmm.
Like but anyway, Shuji Terayama's case was like, so what are you gonna call him? Like an experimental director, really? It just didn't. I think people didn't feel right to call him anything other than a great artist, because he did films, he did theater, he was just shocking, the images. But all images under Shuji Terayama is based on reality. Somebody taking a bath, somebody eating a banana, or somebody literally looking, I was told by someone who was in it, by looking into excuse me on the radio.
No, that's okay.
Say, bare rear end of a man, and in the chair, like looking into the rear end, and anyway, and drawing a picture. So there's these extreme artists. So I'm also I tend to agree with Ellen Stewart. What is experimental, really? What are you going to call that? And who are you going to call that? And at what point are you going to call that? So yes, to to meet the criteria of fundraising and to ask for government and private foundations, you have to have names, you have to have categories, you have to have BIPOC, Latinx, and this and the other. But at the end of the day, an art piece is an art piece, and it is your self-expression. You express yourself in relation to life and visions that you have, and through which that you have some kind of catharsism, because you're expressing yourself in music and dance and acting, and back to, again, back to the survival, and back to the identity, back to the core of who you are. Because with music and art and dance and everything else, you can feel and you can express yourself through, just like the rituals, and then and hopefully be an understanding person to your neighbor who just killed your brother, and go, why the F did he kill my brother? Why? But in any case, so I know that I'm not giving a very good answer as to what you asked me in terms of experimental theater, but straight play, experimental play, musicals, operas, ballet, buto, or flamenco, at the end of the day is to express yourself in which ways that you connect yourself through, in some cases, not everyone, spiritually, to heaven and earth. In some cases of like Korean traditional shamanic people could connect to heaven on earth. It's like that, And some artists can, some artists do. Beyond self-satisfaction of self-expression, you some can connect in universe, heaven on earth kind of thing. Yeah.
So I want to wrap up the conversation by asking this question, and you've done your plays, you've created your own plays, and you've created your own performances at LaMama. What else do you want to, because I know you're the type of person who wants to try a lot of new things. Yeah. What other new things do you have in mind that you want to venture out?
Well, I think I told you a while ago. I wish I had the time to really study like Wing Chun, martial art. At the moment, I'm 64 years old and I'm kind of tired because I work all day. But if I had time, money, I would study Wing Chun, because I think martial art is a great spiritual focus for me. I love wine, I smoke cigarettes, so I can be lazy, but otherwise I really would not change my life, because I'm very lucky to love everything about my life. I love flamenco. I would always be in flamenco class or performance or anything like that. And I love acting, I love stage work, and I love archive because it deals with the history of how people came and what they did, and even technologically, there was no way to for poor artists to print posters. So they had to hand draw their posters, magic markers. Ended up influencing, what's his name? The magic markers. Anyway, a lot of, so one artist always influences the other. We are always influences one another. And then I adore acting. So again, money or not, until the day it's time for me to go, I will forever be acting, and I will forever be somehow dancing flamenco, whether from a chair, disabled or not. I wish if I had time, I would like to study French or study Spanish beyond just conversational, broken French and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could speak Korean, really, because I love Korean drama. There's tons of things, but these things are, like cultural dances, like say flamenco or even hula from Hawaii. These things take a lifetime.
Oh, yes.
So in my limited time, I will do what I can, but realistically, I only have enough time to dedicate myself to, I love Shakespeare. I want to always go back to Shakespeare lessons, and my dream is to be in one good Shakespeare play. And my, or George Bernard Shaw. Oh my God, I would love to be in Shaw play. But it's a good time for me because the society now in New York City is casting everybody, not just, the obvious color or skin. I saw Eugene O'Neill, Long Day's Journey into the Night. Is it that the title? Anyway, Eugene O'Neill play. Parents were white, and the kids were black, and it didn't seem that odd. It was great. So we're at a good time in terms of casting and audience accepting. Literally, whoever puts in. Somebody had a difficult time with Black Hermione because they're so used to Harry Potter Hermione
I see.
for so many years. It's like, no, Hermione cannot be black. I'm like, really?
It's a fictional character.
Yeah. But in general, today's audience is great. They're accepting many different colors in what is typically written for a certain type.
Well, thank you for making this time. I know this is, by the way, this is being recorded after you came back from your long day. So thank you for allowing us to converse about this. So thank you.
Excuse me, I tend to go on and on about.
No. You've given us really solid content here. So
great.
thank you.